you should just do whatever the hell you want to do. And you should figure out what your journey is and how you can have tiny joys in your life. And if you don't like where you live, if you don't like the environment, if you're imagining yourself living 10 years, 20 years in one place and it doesn't look good or feel good to you, you can make a change. It may not make sense to everybody else. It may not line up with whatever career path or trajectory you're supposed to do, but usually it'll work out as long as you find your center. Hey everyone, I'm Morgan DeBaun, a passionate entrepreneur and life advisor. With the Journey podcast, you'll discover that success isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. I'm sharing stories of amazing people who've taken control of their lives. Join me on my own journey to discover the secret sauce behind reaching success with permission from no one else. Okay, so last episode, in my solo episode, I talked about my journey from St. Louis to Silicon Valley. And now I'm going to tell you why I left LA and moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm shooting from, at my house. So the pandemic, like many people, for me, extended a little longer than we thought it would. So the first year I was like, cool, we made it. And then when I realized we were going to go through a whole nother season and this was going to be a long time of a recovery, I felt like I needed to really make more space for myself in my life and not just work and be in survival mode. So actually in 2020, I made it through COVID. You know, we had George Floyd's uprising, and we also have a huge conference called Afrotech, which usually happens in November in person. And we had to pivot that whole thing and redesign and reimagine the whole experience in 2020 into a metaverse, which at the time metaverses were not trending. Nobody knew what a metaverse was. So needless to say, I call it like a wartime CEO. I was at war. I was in wartime endorphins. I was grind mode, and that's really draining. So once we made it through everything, we had our worst quarter ever in the company's history in Q2. Then we had our best quarter ever in Q3 in the company's history at that time. So I was celebrating and rewarding myself and honoring myself by spending a month in Costa Rica after we finished the conference. Starting Thanksgiving of 2020 all the way through almost the end of December. I was in Costa Rica. And I'm with my girlfriend, Simone, who's also one of my business partners at Blavity, and then my girlfriend, Melissa, who runs the Lip Bar. And we just rented beautiful like homes and traveled across the country and had a car and just drove around and like just lived life. And I hadn't taken a real vacation in probably like 2 or 3 years. And while I was there, I fell in love with Costa Rica and I fell in love with myself. I just reimagined my whole life of what I wanted to do. And part of that was actually really being okay and accepting that at some point I may not be the CEO of Blavity. And what do I want my life in my 30s to look like? Because I turned 30 right before COVID. Like my birthday is February 6th. So I turned 30 a couple of weeks before everything started to shut down. And all of a sudden, you know, I was like, I'm about to be pushing 31 and then I'm going to be 32 before you know it. And do I really want to be in LA? Like, do I really want my life to be built around this city when my family is in Nashville and my brother, my sister, and my baby nephew were moving to Durham? So I decided, like a crazy lady, in Costa Rica, I emailed my landlord right there, broke my lease and said, I'm out. So I came back from Costa Rica, gave away most of my furniture to my friends, packed up a U-Haul, shipped it across the country, moved in with my parents in Nashville. They were kind enough to give me a big room in the house that had a nice closet. My closet became my office. And I had no plan besides be closer to home, be closer to my family, and rebalance my life in a way that I would be happy in my 30s. I had made this commitment when I was younger that I was going to spend my 20s grinding and hustling and building something that I was really proud of and incurring a ton of risk as a young age, which I recommend for everyone. Like, if you're young and you have no responsibilities, you have no kids, you're not married, like, do what you want to do. Live where you want to live. Build genuine friendships with the people around you, there is no roadmap. Do what you want, you know? And I really lived that. I sacrificed a lot of my 20s. I partied hard, but I also was a loner. Like I spent a lot of nights just working all night and waking up and working. I just used to sleep with my laptop. I was a workaholic for sure. And I do believe that that level of intensity creates the types of successes and outcomes with it, oftentimes, especially in entrepreneurship and in business. But I also, in LA, saw people who had Peter Pan syndrome, like who were 40 years old, 50 years old, running around LA like they're 20. For the men, I saw a lot of men, we were at Soho House on Saturdays, and they'd be like, just there having meetings. And I'm like, you have two kids and a wife. Why are you in Soho House at 4 o'clock on a Saturday? Having business meetings? We're not talking about anything. Nobody's talking about anything. We are chilling. Like, I saw people around me who prioritized work over their personal life every single moment. And that was not something that I wanted, not someone I wanted to become. I wanted to move. I wanted to be in a more grounded space. So, did I ever think I would live in a city like Nashville? No. Like, people thought I was nuts. When I said I moved to Nashville, people thought, oh my God, Blavity must be going under. Like, she's leaving one of the big cities. People thought, oh, she must be heartbroken. Like, like who was she dating? I'd never posted any man on my social media or anything, so nobody knew anything about my personal life. There was just so many secondary things that people were saying or asking me, and it really wasn't that complicated. It was like, I feel like the trajectory that I'm envisioning for myself, if I stayed in LA, I do not like that outcome. I want to have kids. I want to be a wife one day. I want to have Sunday family dinner. I want my parents to see my kids and to see me more often than not. I don't want to just travel to see my family. And also, frankly, if I am ever going to have kids, because I also knew that there was a world in which I didn't ever get married and that I had kids without a partner, and just because I wanted to have children. And I knew I would need help. Like, I knew that I was going to need to be around family if I was ever going to be able to pull that off. So I was also positioning myself to have multiple routes of success and happiness, regardless of what the world was going to give me. And I think that when you're on your own journey in life, sometimes people get so locked in on one particular outcome that they don't sow many seeds of joy and happiness for themselves. So for me, moving to Nashville increased the likelihood that I was able to have consistent joy, daily joy, that my mom could stop by the house and give me some egg salad. Tiny joy, that my dad could come over and just sit and have a coffee with me. Tiny joy. And that, like, I could see my nephew, not just twice a year, but like once a month. Tiny joy. And I think that I was just learning to be comfortable with designing a life that was a daily life and a weekly life instead of some mega vision of a Hollywood. I had all that. Screenings, invites, awards, award shows, private listening parties, stylists, have all that. And moving to Nashville, what it's taught me is that even when you leave, if you are doing something interesting and you're providing value into the community, regardless of where you live, these cities will always be there. And you can always go, have a week, have a great time, experience all the luxuries, eat all the vegan food you can desire. And then you go home and go back to your normal life. And for me, that was the right choice. And it's given me just such a deeper peace and a more sustainable lifestyle for this life that I've chosen, being an entrepreneur. So one of the things that was really important to me when I moved to Nashville was that I also wanted to stop renting. I was also getting to that point in my founder life where, I had plenty of cash and I was angel investing. I had discretionary income. I started giving money away. And I was also, before I moved to Nashville, my rent in LA was like $5,500 a month. Crazy. I lived on the beach though, so it was beautiful. It was fine and I loved it, but the idea of like spending that much money every single month and how much I travel, I'm out of town like every other week. It didn't, like, the Midwest in me was just like, this cannot be your forever. Like, you've got to get out of this. You've got to come up with a plan. So once I moved into with my parents, I started to just start the journey of buying my own house. And my credit score was just okay. We had had a thing where I was switching my credit card, and my assistant at the time didn't set up auto bill, which is a challenge of delegation. And so that bill didn't get paid. So it hit my credit score. And then I had to go through the whole process of trying to fix that credit score problem. So I had a couple of problems along the way on my house journey. One, I'm a single woman, so I don't have two W-2s, to provide to the bank. Two, I own over 30% of my company, which means that the debt to income ratio includes the debt from the company. And we've raised venture funds, so I have convertible notes on my cap table. So it looks like I have millions and millions of dollars of debt. Now, they don't take in consideration the income from your business, which I think is bonkers. You're going to take my debt, but you're not going to take the income from my business. The math ain't mathin', but I don't write the rules. So I'm in Nashville. They don't see venture-backed founders very often. Also, I look like me. So it was very confusing for people. And then, when you're a founder, your income, it ebbs and flows. So in 2020, I took a pay cut just like everybody. We were cutting everybody's pay. So I took the biggest pay cut at our company. And so there was a couple months that my pay was less. They're like, "Oh, is your business in trouble?" I'm like, "No, it's fine." Like everything went back. We paid ourselves all back. We paid all of our employees back. And like, what's going on? So I talked to my banker, my personal banker, like my wealth manager, and he was really helpful with me going through this process. So he helped me get a mortgage broker because it was so hard for me to get a mortgage. The mortgage broker went on vacation and like stopped responding. And so then I wound up having to negotiate the mortgage on my own. Ultimately, I got the mortgage. Obviously, I'm in this house, but it was just such a stressful process. And I had no idea the rules that apply to founders and entrepreneurs. And it was like degrading in some ways. Like they make you feel like it's like gaslighting from the financial services industry. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, my income is nuts. Like, DeBaun and Co. income was crazy at the time. Like, and it still is, but like, there was no reason I should not have qualified to buy this house. But that journey, I think, also as a single woman, in some ways solidified this kind of like, "Morgan, you should do whatever you want to do. Like, if you can get this done, you could do whatever you want to do." Like, I used to think that I shouldn't buy a house that was this grand and this luxurious before I was married or in a long-term partnership because I didn't want to intimidate the man. I didn't want him to look at me and say, "Where do I fit in? You already have everything. You don't need a man. You already have everything. I can't give you a house." Like a lot of men work really hard and bust their butt at work because they want to provide for their family and they want to like be able to gift things to people. And if I can don't need the gifts, like would that make it difficult for me to find my partner in life? And again, I had seen all these women in LA who were 38, 39, 40 with no kids, not by choice, by circumstance. And they're beautiful, smart, loving people who desire families and desire children. And so I was terrified. I was like, I had to work through those limitations with myself to be able to say, the right man is going to be there, and the right man will love that you have a house, and the right man will probably be like, "I got a house too." Like it's going to be fine and you'll have two homes, right? And like having an abundance mindset instead of trying to continue to shrink myself, which I've done before in relationships and said, let me not talk about work. Let me not have them follow the press releases, not share the interviews, not share the things that I'm doing because I don't want to have my career dominate the dynamics in the relationship. Questions from the listeners. Let's do it. What do the Journey fans want to know?
They want to know, you post on TikTok about being in your soft life era. What does that mean?
For me, it looks like making time to work out every day and definitely like not making excuses for the lifestyle I want to live. I am a passenger princess. I always have been. I never knew there was a term for it, but when that term came out, I was like, oh, that's me. I prefer not to drive ever. I prefer to ride always. Like, I
Way
haven't had a
back.
car since 2013, and I'm okay with it. You know, I also believe the soft life for me is like going on vacation, taking workations. We're a fully remote company at Blavity, which has really been such a delight because it means I have an excuse to go travel and visit my employees and our clients in different places. And like that's been so lovely. I used to travel to cities and never leave the hotel. Like I used to go to New York, get in, go straight to the hotel, have whatever meetings I was having, go back to the hotel and fly out. Like I was just so intense. I was an intense 20-year-old. It was rough, you know? It was intense. Now I go, we have dinner, I have my meet. I'm like, let's have dinner meetings.
Mm.
Like, let's go walk around the city in the park and have our meeting. Like, I just feel like I live a more joyful life because I want to experience life and not just momentum my way through it all. And I think that again, is part of figuring out what your journey is and really just enjoying every single week, every single moment, and saying, how can I enjoy this? I'll tell you another thing that I heard a couple of weeks ago that I try to hold on to, which is there's certain people in your life that you may only ever have 10 to 20 interactions with ever. And that includes some of your close friends, your best friends, your business partners. So when you're really with someone that you don't see often, maybe once a year, once every 2 years, try to be fully present with them because you may only see them 10 times ever in your entire life. Enjoy the moment and stop trying to rush through everything. And I think the soft life era for me has been about just enjoying it. In the middle of the day when I'm stressed, I find Josh, my partner, and I just become I call him my ray of light. And my love language is physical touch. And so I just sit on him and I just soak up all his sun. I do. It's really adorable. I soak up all his sun and then I say, okay, I'm fine. And I recharge and I just go back to whatever task or problem or project or thing that I'm working on that day. If it's at night and I'm trying to unwind, because that's the other thing I think about living a soft life is acknowledging when your body is in overdrive or when your mind is in overdrive. So I have a routine of I will light all the candles in the house. I will take a bath. I will then listen to a podcast. I will scroll on TikTok and doom scroll. And then I will reemerge into the evening as opposed to going straight from work to make dinner to how was your day? How was my day? And just going straight into the flow. I try to slow it down for a second if I'm feeling like my cortisol levels are going up.
It's so weird that a listener would ask this, but they just asked if you've ever taken a bath, drinking wine, eating a burrito.
So one of the tiny joys I think that people should do more often is like switch up your space. So if I'm having a rough day and I know I have to still push through like a spreadsheet or a deck or jam through some emails, I will just go outside on my porch or I will sit in the bathtub and just finish the task. I work from home. You can't see me anyways. Like, why are you sitting at a desk all day? I say this to myself. Why are you sitting at your desk?
Mhm.
Go someplace that brings you joy. Go sit outside on the stoop. Go sit in bed and cozy up. Turn on the fireplace. I just try to get myself out of the rut as much as possible. And I think that's one of the things about how I've tried to navigate and how I recommend that people try to learn themselves, learn the ways that you can get yourself out of that cycle of bleh, get out of that cycle. It happens to everybody, but the faster you can get out of it and things that will pull you out of it, then the better.
Do you have any vitamins, supplements, things that help with
Mm.
your cortisol, stress, routine?
Yeah. I take all the supplements. I take melatonin if I've been traveling quite a bit and my sleep schedule is off. I have the blue light glasses that I'll wear at night or in the evening if I need to. I take a big vitamin every morning. I take a vitamin D or I sit outside. I also will have magnesium in the afternoon if I feel like, or in the evening if I feel like I need to kind of unwind. And then I also drink matcha quite a bit. If I'm really trying to keep my stress levels down, I will not drink coffee and espresso. No, no, no. I will drink matcha. Matcha gives me the energy without the crash. And so that's my like go-to choice if I need some energy without the anxiety and the jitters.
Do you know what a hyperfixation meal is?
Yeah.
Do you have one right now?
I think my hyperfixation meal right now is disgustingly like oatmeal with protein powder. Like, and I'll eat it at night, like as a dessert, which is odd. I know because don't judge me. But yeah, it's like sweet, but it's not chocolate, you know? So it's my way of having something sweet and then also being like, you are
You're-
not hungry right now. Here is a protein bomb and oatmeal. Please go to bed. I mean, you just saw me do it. I did it today.
I did do that. I was like, that's a new, I haven't seen the oatmeal train before.
It's true.
If you could invite 3 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would you invite?
If I could invite 3 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would I invite? I feel like I would invite like Coretta Scott King, Rosa Parks, and like Sojourner Truth. Because I just feel like they were seriously about it. And I just want to be like, all these men wrote your story. What actually happened? Tell me the truth. And I just feel like there's just more to it. Like, I feel like there's just more black female. We nailed that shit. And I just feel like I want to meet these ladies. I feel like them talking to each other would also be a vibe. Like, Sir Jordan Truth was a badass.
Yeah.
Coretta Scott King, I mean, we know she has stories.
Yeah.
And then Rosa Parks, so many secondary stories have come out from that where it's like, yeah.
I'm curious about like your journey with social media. If you part of like, I know you've posted more recently and part of that is you just had to, but do you think part of it was, to your point, like writing your own story?
Yeah. Yeah, I have been posting more on social media in the last I've always been a person who wanted to share my story along the way.
Mm.
So even when I didn't have any followers, I would share my day to day because I felt like it might help another entrepreneur, and specifically a female or black entrepreneur who doesn't have a lot of people to look at to say, well, what am I supposed to do? What are these term sheets? What does it look like to grow a company? What does it look like to have an office? Because I didn't have that. So I definitely wanted to share my journey along the way. The hard part was there was a moment in which what I was sharing, my employees were also viewing. And so I had to think about
Mm.
just like the double message of like like, you don't want to be like, had a shitty day today, employees suck. Like, like, no, right? So I was started to be just a little bit more mindful of like making sure that I was representing the company well as my following grew and I became a public figure. I never asked to be a public figure. You don't start a tech company thinking you're going to be a public figure. Like nobody knows the CEO of Dropbox. Nobody knows. I mean, like maybe white people do, but like black people aren't like walking around the airport like, oh my God, that's the CEO of Delta. Like only black people turn their CEOs into public figures. We turn everything into a public figure. And I am an introvert, so I wasn't fully ready for that. And so for me, it was actually I had a friend, Jason Maiden, very early on in my journey, who said, you are going to be a role model. So you need to decide what you want to share and what you don't want to share. And you need to decide what story you want to tell, or else someone else will write that story for you. And I always was concerned and worried about, will my story be simplified into a box? And the more successful you become, the more people just say it was easy,
Mm.
that was easy the whole way through. And she's this, she's that. Of course it was easy. If you Google my name, some of the first things that come up is Morgan DeBaun dad, thinking I'm a Nepo baby. I'm not a Nepo baby. Morgan DeBaun husband, I ain't got no husband. Did this myself. Like all of these things, trying to figure out why did she make it? There's no reason. There's no like secret reason. I just did the work and I got lucky and I did a lot of hard work. I had a lot of opportunity. I have a lot of privilege and I did the work. That's it. there's no secret man behind me. And I think that telling my story on social media and having people in my who have become friends that I've met through the internet has been really affirming for me and just helped me stay focused. And again, not really worry about what are the people saying, because I know I will always have a tribe of people who've been with me since day one, because I've been sharing the real since day one, since we were in the artist loft in downtown LA, since we had the office building in downtown San Francisco, since we did our first Afrotech with 350 people in the mall, 600 people in the mall, to now, right? So social media has been helpful in that way. For today's episode, I hope that all the listeners take away that, and those of you who are watching on YouTube, that you should just do whatever the hell you want to do. And you should figure out what your journey is and how you can have tiny joys in your life. And if you don't like where you live, if you don't like the environment, if you're imagining yourself living 10 years, 20 years in one place and it doesn't look good or feel good to you, you can make a change. It may not make sense to everybody else. It may not line up with whatever career path or trajectory you're supposed to do, but usually it'll work out as long as you find your center. Thanks for listening to the Journey Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review and head to our Instagram and YouTube to leave a comment. And look forward to hearing how this podcast has made an impact on your own journey.